Hey everyone, welcome back to another shift show. It seems like every day we enjoy a little bit more shift in our lives. And today I want to welcome Elena Valentine from Skill Scout. So hey, appreciate it, Elena, for you being here. This will be a great show. We've been talking a lot. I mean, we were talking right before the show. I think I'm doing 3 or 4 of these a week and talking about the crisis and recovering and strategy. This one is just about people. We're talking about celebrating people in this.
Little bright note.
Yeah,
among
absolutely.
Crisis conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So before I get there, I just want to do a couple things here. I want to thank everyone who's part of Googlization Nation. If you're not, it's free, and you get to enjoy a lot of updates about upcoming live streams, podcasts, webinars, other resources that I've got. We got great people like Elena on board, and we've got a whole schedule next week as well. So you'll get advance notices of that. So I hope you'll go to Googlization Nation and enjoy that. Tomorrow, we're actually talking to, I don't know if I have his thing up here. Yeah, I do. Okay. On podcast, Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. We've got Declan Murphy. He's from Ireland. He owns a company. He's the CEO of a company called Data Life. And I love this. He just shared this with me like minutes before the show. And as the topics, we're going to be talking about taking the robot out of the human. And I talk, one of my presentations, one of the more popular ones I do is called Keeping the Human in HR. In fact, it's being done virtually at the Indiana HR conference tomorrow. So I recorded that last week, and that's the topic, and it's obviously extremely popular. And I've had a great response to it, but I really love the taking the robot out of the human. Yes, that's a challenge. So you can join us at 1:00 tomorrow on W4CY.com or get the replay on your favorite podcast. And now we've got, let's talk about people at work. So Elena, why don't you give a little bit of a background? I met your partner about 2 years ago. In fact, I had pulled it up and I was looking at the interview. It was actually 2 years ago in actually more than 2 years ago. Wow. January 2018. So we had an interview and we were talking about video and talent acquisition and the role it plays. And it's always been a passion of mine. But you guys, Skill Scout has just evolved tremendously. I mean, I'm not even, it's the same company, but I'm sure it's not the same company.
No, there's a different energy. There definitely is a different energy now, even that from a year ago and certainly 2 years ago.
So a couple things. Tell us about Skill Scout, and then let's go in and we'll talk about the power of video, but then the project that got us together, which is Humans at Work.
Yeah. So a little bit about Skill Scout. We are a media production company, really for the world of HR and people leaders. So we exist to capture the humanity of all jobs because we believe that everyone has a story of work and why it's meaningful. And so we see that as our responsibility and our passion to be able to capture these workplace stories on film. And so whether that is about bringing a job to life or company culture or training or leaders, it really is all about highlighting the stories of the workplace, how our workplace is filled with them, because our workplace is filled with people. So for us, it's really about putting, people first and leveraging the power of film to be able to do that.
And I just want to let you know, and anybody who's watching this, is that I'm not being distracted by checking my emails and all these things. I got 5 screens open here. I'm the director, the producer, the interviewer, the host, and all of the above. So we got
no easy feat. No easy feat.
And you understand
I get it.
that. You've been there. So we got all
totally.
of that. So I'm looking away. And then the other thing is, we're on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook Live simultaneously, which is fun, except the LinkedIn feeds, the comments, which is where we usually get a lot of activity, doesn't come through my main screen, so I got to check out my other devices. So we're living in the age of Googleization, as we like to say. So you're a media production company. How, I guess, why does HR? Why do companies hire you? What's the importance of video in today's market?
Well, right now it's all we have, but I won't even go there. I think historically the reason why we started was because of a project aimed to connect young people to employment. That's how Abby and I got our start.
And that was our conversation 2 years ago. That was
exactly
what we were talking about. Yeah.
Job descriptions don't show what a job is like. And when we got started, we were inspired because we saw so many young people who lacked access and exposure to jobs. They had never left their neighborhoods and thereby were flailing, both in applying to jobs, being successful getting into them, et cetera, et cetera. And so when we took a step back, what we realized there was a power in video and a power in storytelling, and initially just getting young people excited about the world of work. So literally the essence, we just started filming jobs and it just started to work. And I would say the reason why companies, come to us are for a couple of reasons, especially at least when it comes to talent acquisition. We're thinking about a couple of things. One is we, have a job that needs a reality check. How many of us have applied to jobs thinking it's one thing, and then we get in there and realize, like, I was not expecting these 85 surprises. And there really is a power in being able to showcase that and give jobs a new medium to kind of really drive that story. And the same goes for whether or not we're talking about company culture or leadership messaging. When we can't be in person, the next best thing we have is visuals and is video. And particularly being able to not only make an emotional connection, but also seeing is believing. So it's taking advantage of the fact that when we're using video, we're given this new medium to showcase our jobs and our work in new and different ways than what we had before. And in doing so, what we find is that we, be it candidates or employees, have a new way to make meaningful connections, either to other people in their workplace or to a mission, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's a lot of really what we drive and why companies typically come to us.
Yeah. And again, so much has evolved, and it's a combination. It's not just that you got better at it or people became more accepting, but the technology is so much better. I mean, we talk about other crises in the past, and we couldn't have done what we do now. I mean, it would have been is as challenging as work and life is right now. The fact is that without video and without the technology, we wouldn't be able to do it. Right before at noon today, or about 2 hours ago, it depends where you are in the country, but at my noon, there was a conference, and I highly recommend people going to this series. And if you haven't caught this, they'll have the replay up there. But it was it's the Global Mentor Network. And I don't know if you've been following that at all. They've had tremendous speakers, and because of the pandemic crisis, they've opened these up so you can hear people that normally you'd have to pay a fee. And today's speakers, interesting was I'm drawing a blank on his name. Let me see, because I took a bunch of notes. Benno Dover he's the CEO of Clorox. So you can imagine what they got under. And then Kelly Stecklerberg, who's the CFO of Zoom. So here's an amazing stat. And again, I want to get your, I'm sure you're seeing the uptick on this. In December, they had 11 million daily participants. In April, they had 300 million participants. And a lot of them are obviously business, but the majority of them are consumers of people, because they talked about seeing, new nephews and nieces and children and grandchildren, and the introductions on Zoom, weddings on Zoom, engagement announcements on Zoom. A couple weeks ago, they had masses on Zoom and Passover Seders on Zoom. But I thought
I had my Passover Seder on Google Video Hangout.
Yeah, I think what the one amazing stat that Kelly had said, that and especially, and I know this is a powerful message that you're trying to get across with diversity and inclusion. Yeah. What Zoom did was that regardless if you're the CEO or the production line worker, everybody's picture is the same size. It equalized everybody. It democratized everybody. You got to see people who were comfortable. You know, sometimes it was the executives who were uncomfortable and the frontline people were not. It democratized everything, which I think was a hidden message behind video, because a lot of people who were, oh, I don't like to be seen on camera. I'm really uncomfortable. Oh, there's a showboat. And even, you know, so many conferences I see is that they're pre-recorded and it's a slide and you never see the person. I recorded 4 hours of video for the Indiana HR conference because I had a boot camp. I had a 3-hour session. And I thought they would say, oh, you know, you're not going to do a 3-hour session. It's like, what do I do with like 3 hours of me recorded? Nobody's going to watch 3 hours of video of slides. So I basically was part of the screen. So they got to see me. They got to see, you know, if I was animated, but I had to be animated. I couldn't just read the slides. I had to be focused. It changed the dynamic of it a whole lot. But I thought that was interesting with Zoom, that it sort of democratized and it equalized everybody, which was a perspective you saw it, but you didn't think much about it.
Well, what it's really forcing people to do are two things that many of us are very deathly afraid of. One is public speaking, really.
Number one fear of human beings.
The other one is camera jitters and being in front of the camera. There is something about being in front of this camera that gets us really nervous, right? We start to look at ourselves. We start to, look at our own body language, et cetera, et cetera. And it becomes a deterrent, right? And so, part of storytelling, outside of that is just getting people to just be comfortable with themselves, with their stories, and quite frankly, with this new medium of a camera. It certainly does become a big challenge.
But on the flip side of that, and again, it's that people think that they're going to be professionals. They also think that, actors and actresses just go up there and they're just naturals at it. They practice a lot. And they get to cut, the bad parts out, and they got to do 20 takes, 30 takes, 50 takes. Everybody says, "Oh, you're just a natural at it." Yeah, you don't see all the practice that went into it, and all the bloopers and the mistakes. And when we're doing something like this live, then it really, it really comes out. But you have to be comfortable. But the one thing, again, not that people can be frozen and you can't, you can't be paralyzed, but there's it also allows that transparency, that there's a human being, that when people see that you might be fear or you made a mistake or that there's a little anxiety, they go, hey, they're like me. And there's that power of authenticity and transparency, which is what fails miserably in most companies when they were talking about their employment brand, when they were talking about talent acquisition. They have these well cultivated, pristine videos, professionally done. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have a professionally done video, or even the job descriptions. They're written, they're sent through legal, they're sent through marketing, and then it doesn't resonate with anybody.
And the challenge, right, with synchronous, right, type conversations is that we don't necessarily have real-time rehearsals, right? So what you're seeing on this live stream is what you get, right? And I think that there's a distinction between when we're doing video in real time, right? Me and you on a live stream, and when we're doing video asynchronously, where this might be something that's been separately recorded. Maybe we've been able to finesse, maybe we've been able to add some extra context and narration to that. The approaches are certainly different and the considerations are different.
Yeah. And what I love talking about with people like you, and I've been doing a lot of talks with experts and people who are just passionate. Some of them aren't experts in what they do. They're just passionate about a particular subject. And again, it reveals their transparency and authenticity. But it also, I think what video is doing too is, we talk a lot about this growth mindset of that people have to be, especially everybody is going to make mistakes going forward. everybody. I just heard, as I said, the CEO of Clorox, one of the best places to work in the world. People love that company, especially now. It's obviously very, very successful. Here's another thing interesting about them, and this goes back to the culture. And here's a great story behind this: is they have 9,000 employees. They're obviously growing. They've also had the risk of their demand in sales went up 500%. And at most, they're able to increase production 40%. That's as much as they're at maximum capacity. So they've got this consumer demand problem. And yet, with all the things that are going on, they've only had 14 positive cases of coronavirus among 9,000 people.
Yeah.
Because that was their culture. But here we are talking about it. That's the story behind that. It's not just a publicly traded company and everybody recognizes Clorox. Is they said we have a brand to protect, that Clorox is in 9 out of 10 households in the U.S. And their mission is that, number one, we're going to take care of our people. And they backed it up. The fact that only 14 people out of 9,000 people tested positive is just an incredible story.
But this is where it's the power of story, right? And the change in the narrative for Clorox. All of us have Clorox products, right? And in some ways we think of Clorox as, it's utility. It's kind of table stakes, basic. It was kind of boring. It was like, yeah, of course, I have Clorox to wash my clothes. I have Clorox to, clean my house. No big deal. It's a legacy product. But now, right, when we think about the power of narrative, or imagine, right, I'd love to, capture someone on film at Clorox, right? The narrative has changed. It's become less of just, this is a utility function. We're here to clean, everything and disinfect everything. It's like Clorox has the ability to save lives, right? And to keep us safe. What better mission to be a part of? What better story to attach ourselves to than, hey, I work for Clorox, or I buy Clorox because I care about my life, I care about my safety, I care about the safety of my children and of my family and of my friends. That's a very powerful story.
And because now with, everybody can be a videographer. We got these things. So every one of us could be. It doesn't take much, and you even on the website, provide what's the basic equipment that you need, and you can get a very inexpensive tripod. People have them. People are selling them all the time because they're basically a dime a dozen. If you got a smartphone, somebody owns a smartphone. If you don't, or you have a tablet, and therefore you got what you need, and the new smartphones and the new tablets, the quality, the resolution, and it's just phenomenal. So
absolutely.
You have Zoom. You just
the way that I like to liken it to, you said anyone can be a videographer. I always look back to Ratatouille, the Pixar film. That's like anyone can cook. The truth is anyone can film. That's the truth, right? We all have the technology and the function, but the distinction is anyone can film. But can anyone make someone feel through the power of film? That takes time. That takes skill. And it's a little bit of an art and a science to that. And so, what I see is very exciting, right? We have many more people that, are adopting this kind of technology, quite frankly, because they have to, right? And they're using this because it's, a utility. Hey, I need to communicate with my colleagues. I am here to communicate and connect with my family members. But then if you take it a step further, down the line, to think about film is an art form. Film is a skill to create emotional connection. That really is where we differentiate between those that see this as utility and kind of, all right, I'm just here to have a conversation with you, and those that are using it in its form to make powerful connections and make people feel.
And I said initially, and I definitely want to this is a great segue to go into it. Over the years, you created this passionate project about humans at work, and it's not just about you and me and the CEO of Clorox and the CFO of Zoom being recorded and showing that. We're talking about everyday human beings. Everybody has a story. Everybody is passionate about something.
Amen. Ira Wolf.
Yeah. And you have the event that you had last week, Humans at Work, the film festival. And we're going to show a short clip of that. And then, we'll get a little bit more a story behind that. So let me see if I can do all these things. So I got to share my screen, and then I got to pull up the right screen. And just lost that. Okay. So we're going to get to that. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that one didn't work. So we're going to go back to share screen live, everybody. But let's see. Okay, well, hopefully this is going to go. Where are we here? There we go. Okay, now let's see if we can bring us back in here, and we'll stop the sharing, and there we are. Incredible. You had that was released last Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what day.
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Powerful. Tell us the background. What was the inspiration from that? And then if you can, let's talk a little bit about each of the people in there, because again, the stories were just, it was like one was better than the other.
Yeah, no. Well, first of all, thank you for being a part of our inaugural event. It was so important to have that level of engagement. So a little bit of background about Humans at Work generally, even before the festival. So Humans at Work is kind of an outlet for our team of filmmakers to kind of fuel our creativity, try new things, explore stories, even down kind of a deeper rabbit hole than maybe what we would have been able to do. And it really started in 2018, where I was moved by a quote by Denise Young-Smith, who's the former head of diversity and inclusion at Apple. And she said, "There are not enough positive stories about the workplace. Positive stories have the power to shift bias, counterbalance our brains in positive ways." And it occurred to me, right, that, some of the most gratifying moments that we get to have as filmmakers is when we are interviewing someone, following someone around who you just know is just walking in their purpose. These were engineers who were meant to be engineers ever since they were 3 years old. These were CNC machinists who were picking toys apart and their televisions apart when they were 6 years old, right? You can just sense that kind of passion. And we wanted to bring more light to that And so that's really where kind of the project began, was I think really fueling positivity, showing how the workplace can be filled with so many both kind of gratifying and inspiring moments of people who have found their purpose, and that we want to be able to help capture that. And so that at the foundation is why we started to kind of do some of this work on our own. The idea for the festival has been a long time vision of our team, right? That this would be our gift, our contribution to our industry. And, you know, oddly, being in this time, we had a forced moment of pause, as all of us have. And for our team, you know, it kind of was fueled into action to say, what is something that we've been passionate about that can, I think, drive our skills forward, drive our passion forward, that we wouldn't have been able to do, quite frankly, if it wasn't for this time. And the film festival was certainly one of them. Was, you know, can we create a community? Can we create an experience where people can celebrate these films, but even more importantly, have a reflection within their own selves about the meaning of their work and why they do what they do? And that there's a level of connective tissue and relatability to the stories that they're seeing on film that kind of touch them and allow them to feel deeply for their work. And so that's how it started. And, you know, no one says it more perfectly than Toni Morrison. And I kicked off our film festival with her quote, where she says that in moments of dread and uncertainty, that's when artists go to work. There is no room for pity. There is no room for despair. We use our art, we use our language, we speak, we write, and that is how civilizations heal. And for us as a team, right, when so many things feel so uncertain, the one thing that we can lean back on is our identities as artists. It's the one way that we can communicate all of our emotion in such a universal way for everyone to feel what we want them to feel. And that was the inspiration for Humans at Work, was to provide an experience for people to enjoy, to cry, to laugh, to give them the feels, and to reinstate meaning for why they're doing the work that they're doing. And it was beautiful and gratifying to just, I think, see the overwhelming response to how people were impacted through this very short time together.
Yeah, and again, each story. So you had a couple people. You know, we can get into how they were selected or whatever, but the one that struck me the most, and you know, maybe it was the one that was most action oriented.
Absolutely,
was the operator from London. You know, one of the shows we watch is 911. And, you know, but any of those shows, you know, whether it's one of the hospital shows or one of the mysteries, anybody who's in that industry always says, oh, it doesn't reflect it at all. I mean, it's not really like that. Now, I had 30 years of healthcare experience, and people would always say, there is no way that's what an ER looks like. Let me tell you, maybe some of the side stories aren't happening, but they probably are. But when we saw that 911 operator, you're talking about an intense moment. And although we only could see you and Torin on the screen the other day, I'm sure I think you said there was like 250 people that might have been on at any given time. There was probably 250 people with teary eyes.
Very much so. Yep. That's what we got, right? I had people texting me like, I know you're not supposed to get this right now, but I'm crying in my kitchen right now. My kids are on the edge of their seats.
And it wasn't that it was a sad story. I mean, I don't want to give it away, but I mean, there was a good end. It was a positive ending.
Yes.
But to see somebody and you felt this person's passion in that job. You just felt that. And then there were the amputee. I mean, again, frontline worker, you know, people like and again, it's so common today. I mean, now with grocery store workers and healthcare workers, you know, to think that a grocery worker would be now called a first responder or an essential worker is just amazing. But rather than just talking globally about grocery workers, to have a story. And here was a gentleman. So I will let you talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean, I think to finish your point, I think that's the power of story and film, that we don't necessarily have to tell the story of many. What we have to do is be able to tell the story of few, or one that can be most relatable, right? And that's what we saw with David's story over at Encompass Health. And us meeting David was, quite frankly, on a fluke, if you can believe that. He was not on our plan. He was not on our film plan. He was not supposed to be interviewed. He was just a volunteer to take some employee action B-roll, right? Because we were at this rehab clinic over at Encompass Health in Arizona, and we just started talking to him, and all of a sudden he's sharing his story with no expectations, right? But to say, I'm an amputee. I'm actually a former patient at this rehab center. And we were like, what? And then, oh, by the way, your immediate supervisor was actually the nurse that helped save part of your leg. What? So we knew right then and there that, we didn't know what we were going to do with it yet. Obviously this wasn't part of the film plan. It certainly wasn't part of our client's film plan. We said, all right, we need to capture this story because this is special. This is important. This is someone, and David has many callings. Being a musician is certainly a huge thing for him. But when it comes to helping people, when it comes to supporting others who have a disability or are amputees, he knew that, if he could rise from the ashes, that he certainly wanted to help others do the same. And so it's a very, very powerful story of someone coming around full circle in his career and in his passion. And really, it's 5 minutes of his journey of how he finds meaning in his work.
And I think that's, and that's maybe the hidden message. And I want to get it across to everybody because I'm a big proponent of video. I've talked about it. It's part of my book. It's part of my online courses that I do. And again, I'm not going to the extent that you do, but just talking about the basics and being able to share those stories is that within 5 minutes or less, within 60 minutes of an interview with somebody of talking about what they're passionate about or why they enjoy working for you or why they enjoy doing something. I don't remember the exact number, and it's obviously there's lots of research, but I think it was that a video, it would take 1,000. It's like 1,000 words for every second of video of something like that. And so you can, if you want to have a 60-second, you'd have to write 60,000 words of a job description to convey what you can do in a 1 minute video. If it's done well. If it's done well, and so the power really is in going forward with the video. So there's so much. Where do you go next? What's next for Humans at Work?
So we will be sharing very soon that we will be having a private screening of one film at the end of the month. For folks that would be interested in joining. So I will gladly share that with the community once we share that publicly.
Absolutely.
But we intend to host these quarterly. So, selecting films, certainly not just of our own, but just of the world of filmmakers who are capturing great things out there, and curating it and providing an experience for our community to gather and come around and celebrate.
And I think you're currently working on the replay for last week. Is that right? That will be available.
Yes, we are. Yep. Yeah. So we will be releasing that publicly. And first of all, really shout out to, many folks who made that happen. Torrin Ellis, who everyone will see on the replay, such a powerful speaker and presence, someone we knew, just given his values in diversity and inclusion, given his values and story, would be such a powerful partner in this. And we certainly intend to continue collaborating in the future. And then there were, it's so interesting, if I can reflect, is, for many years, we never really put anything on like this, right? Skill Scout has put on a conference, or, we don't put on, webinars, right? And I think what was really beautiful for me was to see just how many of my community in HR and in this industry just showed up, came out, supported, promoted, hugged us, and just loved us. And I do want to take a moment to honor that, because it was probably one of the most beautiful things that we saw, that the power of the relationships that we had built for so long. People just embracing this and embracing that this was a prototype, if you will, an experiment, and certainly an experiment that is doing really well, right?
Absolutely.
But there were folks that took a leap with us and said, well, we trust you, so let's do this. And so, from our team to Torin and to so many others who came around to make this successful, to yourself who came on, right? I mean, all of that was so important to what this is and to what we want to build in the future.
Well, I'm just grateful that I got the invitation and I found out about it and had this opportunity, and then the opportunity to follow up with you, because again, it's incredibly powerful, and whether you're going to use video or not in your business, I mean, it just shows you the power of the story. And if you really, it's as difficult as storytelling is, it's much easier with video. It's not difficult. You just let people talk, find out what they're passionate about. But if you had to write that, I mean, in the past, it was let's convert the job description into a story. That's challenging, because just words just don't have the power that visual and sound do.
But it's not even as utilitarian as that. I mean, honestly, what I've always manifested, and I don't know if you know him, Studs Terkel, who wrote Working, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm Chicago-based, homegrown, so I grew up with his stories. And one thing that I've always manifested is to say, I want to be the modern day Studs Terkel, but with a camera, right? I mean, he wrote, one of the most iconic books on working, and it was just him and a recorder going around the U.S., putting it in front of someone and saying, let's talk about your work, good, bad, ugly. But inevitably, right, at the heart of that was it was a journey of people reflecting on the meaning of their work. And it's hard and it's tough, but it can also be gratifying. It can also be the glue for our family and for, how we, thrive with our families. And I think that that's what was so beautiful. And so, Studs Terkel certainly isn't here, but I channel him and can only wish that the work that we do, the stories that we are telling through film, could have even the slightest of impact of what Studs Terkel has done for storytellers and artists like myself who see the convergence of story and work.
Well, you're way out of the gate. You've already left that part. Again, last week was again. I think I've done 7 interviews since then, and I don't know how many people I talked to, but every person I talked to is part of the humans at work. So it obviously impacted me, and I know it's reaching a lot of other people just through that. So you accomplished that. So you're doing it. You're on your way. So
yeah,
we'll know you when. So before we close, it's interesting. The other thing is, and maybe it was because the last week made me more aware. I got contacted by a colleague. I actually only met him once, but we've been in contact for 20 some years. And he reached out to me just yesterday, as a matter of fact, and said he's working with a nonprofit he lives in Chattanooga now, but down in that area, in Nashville. And they're, because of it's focused on PTSD and mostly veterans, which is PTSD is going to be a huge problem coming after the pandemic as well. And he said, I had no idea it was like this big of a problem, and it reached so many people. Well, their project, interesting enough, is to get the stories of, and this is mostly for veterans that are suffering from PTSD. Most of them do not want to talk about their story. When you get them started, they share their story. What they're doing is, you talk about a combination of video, storytelling, audio. They've worked with musicians to volunteer their time, and the musicians in Nashville are going to record the story.
That's so cool.
When I told him, I said, "Hey, did you know about the School Count, the Humans at Work project?" He said no, and so I'm talking with Rick after this, and it might be a connection.
Hey, Rick, let's chat. Let's brainstorm. Sounds super great, and however we can compare notes. Absolutely, that's really cool.
And they're not. I mean, they're really novices. They're looking for experts to sort of pull this together. What do we need to do, and how do we do that? And again, so it was all just so coincidental, but the power of storytelling. So imagine, I mean, obviously you had video, you had music, and there was a story behind it. But to have everybody's coming together, and you said in a crisis, the artists, but also just the general people. I mean,
for sure.
We're walking through the community. We live in a small community. There's 2,000 people here, and I'm talking about a borough.
It's about the size of my city block, Ira,
or a building. But there's 2,000 people in the community, so we're walking around, and I bet you there's 7 or 8 homes that have displays, homemade displays, just thanking the first responders, thanking the healthcare workers, thanking the grocery store workers, thanking the essential workers. Again, that's just the story. It's just the story. Everybody has a story to tell, and you guys are doing. You guys are knocking it out of the park. You're really. I'm so glad that I kind of met Abby about 2 years ago, and then followed the progress, and then last week because actually I got to thank Jason Averbook. You were on the you were on the call, and
thank you, Jason and Jess Von Bank from LeapGen and Fuelwork. Yes, thank you.
Before, so I think she was watching too. So
yeah,
but good. Final words. What do you got to? What do you got to share? What's the end? I know it's not the end of your story. What's the next chapter in your story?
I'll end with a quote by Patty Digg. The shortest distance between two people is a story. And our workplace is filled with people, and thereby our workplaces are filled with stories. And so the more that we can make space for people to tell theirs, to celebrate theirs, is so powerful. In making people feel connected to the work that they do and to the people that they partner with. And so I truly am privileged to be walking in my purpose, and it feels very meta, right? To just really be a fly on the wall and following people around as they do their work. But it really is, one of the biggest honors of my life is, people who entrust me and our team with their stories, and we honor them for that.
And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
On one number of things, on the success of that, following your purpose, being able to share so many other people's stories. This is your time, and I'm happy to be a part of it. And anything I can do to help, please let me know.
I appreciate that, Ira. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And before we sign off today, I want to thank everybody who was participating and watching, or in the future who's watching. Please share this, and especially share the message. I mean, even if you don't share this video, share the Humans at Work project, the film festival. Go up to the site, and I'll certainly communicate that when the next one's available.
Absolutely.
The ones, and when the replay is out there. Remember that tomorrow. Let me go back up here for a little bit. I've got Declan Murphy on Geeks, Geezers, and Googlization. That's at 1 p.m. on w4cy.com or your favorite podcast. And on a similar theme, we're going to be talking about how do you take the robot out of the human. And again, I guess that's involved with the storytelling. And then finally, if you're not a member of Googlization Nation, go up and do it. It's googlizationnation.com. You can see the scrolling bar on the bottom, and you'll get more updates about podcasts, seminars, when the Humans at Work projects will be out. We'll be sure to be putting that in our weekly newsletter and announcements. Let me see. I'm going to get this off so we can get our faces one more time. And next week, I know Monday I've got a live stream with Amy Miller. She's a recruiter at Amazon. But
Yes.
yeah, probably.
That
So
sassy queen. Yes.
you might have heard
Great.
about Amazon. You probably
Yeah.
heard about Amy Miller too.
Go
But
Amy.
for people out there that haven't heard about Amy, you definitely want to be on that call. But I'm especially talking about, how's a company like Amazon recruiting in these days, and what's the world of talent acquisition look like? So a little bit more on the tech side, but again, all people stories. So Elena, thank you very much. Say hello
Thank
to Abby
you.
and the
I
crew.
will.
Congratulate everybody. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.